Welcome back. Now we're going to go over some major points about assessment and dyslexia. The most important thing to know is that there is no one dyslexia test. Dyslexia is in the federal law as part of specific learning disability. However, it can also be a clinical diagnosis based on testing by a psychologist. A formal diagnosis of specific learning disability or dyslexia requires an evaluation using normed and standardized tests. A psychologist will assess cognitive abilities, and an educational specialist will assess the current educational achievement of the student. These professionals may be in a school system or they may be private practitioners. Most students with dyslexia will not qualify for special education services because there are very stringent guidelines. There's some good news here. The assessment for dyslexia can fit well within a multi-tiered systems of support. Analysis of screening assessments used in that system can inform effective instruction for students with dyslexia in or out of special education. Intervention with Orton-Gillingham type programs are most effective when begun early, and early intervention does not need to wait for a formal diagnosis or qualification for special education when you're using an MTSS system. Portland Public Schools is currently using the KTEA to determine the current academic achievement of a student when they're in the identification process. The KTEA is the Kaufman Test of Educational Achievement, and all the tests in it are related to dyslexia. So it covers phonological processing, letter-word recognition, letter name, nonsense word recognition, spelling, and writing. Screening assessments are closely related to dyslexia. Core phonics surveys, DIBELS, EasyCBM, all assess skills that are related to dyslexia. Progress monitoring helps track development of these crucial skills. Informal measures are also important when working with students with dyslexia. Writing samples, particularly tests or classroom work, are full of valuable information for evaluating spelling and handwriting. Student class reading will give you ideas about prosody. Progress monitoring assessments tell you where to go next, and running records also supply a lot of information about comprehension. You can get a lot of specific information from looking closely at a student's errors on universal screeners. Analysis of their errors can immediately identify their current knowledge and skills. The errors that are targeted by screeners are also typical of dyslexia. Making a chart where you can consolidate information from several different sources is very helpful. Such a chart or grid of phonics or spelling elements can inform your planning on what to teach, help meetings, discussions with other teachers. The same chart can be used to track progress. Here's a sample of the kind of chart that you could use to consolidate information about your students' skills. Some commercial programs include similar charts. The errors are grouped by skills, so it's easy for planning. Here's a sample of a DIBELS non-word fluency test. Now, besides knowing that your student is well below goal for correct letter sounds and below goal for words recoded correctly, you can collect specific information about what your student needs to learn. For example, the student said instead of gan, so there's a short vowel he doesn't know. For fom, another short vowel. We have B and P confusion, twice and more short vowels. Lots of information to be collected here. On this running record, we could find out that this student makes whole word guesses. Later on in the running record, we can get good information about their comprehension as well. Here's a core phonics summary page showing the numerical scores that are helpful for grouping. Let's look a little closer and see what specifically the student is having trouble with. So when asked to put letter names, uppercase, he saw a J and said G. For the letter name lowercase, he saw a D and said B. When he was looking at consonants asked for the sounds, he saw an X and said S. He saw a G and said J. He saw a B and said D. He saw a Q and said up. Here's some more good ideas for instruction. Our student is having trouble between F and I. Short vowels, 3 times he had trouble with this. He also had trouble with B and D several times. On the consonant blends with short vowels, he didn't know any consonant blends. And some things he could only say the first sound. We can see from this that he's probably missing a lot of words just because he doesn't understand how consonant digraphs work. So for example, some of his errors, he saw a WH and he said woo. He saw a CH and said k. He saw a TH and said ch, which is totally different. He saw a W and said whoo. So WWH, reversible either way, he doesn't know. He saw DGE and said dj. He saw TCH and said tch. Here's a great source of instructional information. He also looked at some long vowels. He doesn't know what a magic E does. He said tap E for tape. This is a really common error in dyslexia. Here's the Core Phonics Survey cover sheet again, noting some of the errors. Looking at the things to review, there's quite a few items there, but on what needs to be taught, the Core Phonics Survey categories are really useful, and you can see how this will all translate into really nice and specific IEP goals. Here's a writing sample from a 7th grader. Notice you can get some nice spelling errors off of this, but more important, we're looking at how he's having trouble with letter formation even in 7th grade, and how just fixing up a few letters would really help him a lot. So his S is too large, it's not on the line, G is floating around, P is always a capital, and overall they're unevenly sized. Again, this could be some IEP goals. Here's that chart again with all the different errors we've discovered marked on the chart. So the idea is to make it easy for the teacher or for the planning team to come up with educational ideas. So to summarize, errors discovered from screeners or from standardized tests are easily translated into IEP or other kinds of goals. Continued patterns of errors may indicate appropriate accommodations. Common Core standards have a skill standards area that can be monitored in this way as well.